Hey, what's up, YouTube? Welcome back to another video. This time it'll be polls for Ursula's FR, which I'm actually super excited about. I love using Ursula. I haven't played her in a bit, probably since around the time that maybe a little after Gilgamesh got his burst. She has a lot of fun to play, though. So I'm looking forward to having her FR again and using it. I have not finished my Odin grind, so I also need to work on that. I think I've done the first 10 boards, and then I kind of left it alone. I've been playing a lot of Genshin lately. Anyway, let's get started. I have not forgotten when you pull, which we will also be doing. Rejoice. Oh. Well, that happened. Okay, so this is going to be a short as hell video. Oops. So, here's what you need to know. So, Freya here. There we go. Freya here. She gets her force levels, nothing really new or interesting or whatever. Sync, though. Sync gets a rework here, right? As well as her C90. Her rework starts off really kind of basic. Her skill 1 and skill 2 both now, when you're using the plus version, instead of removing all of the stacks of stun that it applied, it reduces it to 1. Which is nice because it means you don't really have to rebuild them quite as much. And I'll kind of come back to that in a minute. As for her LD, she now starts with the LD buff, so you don't ever have to use that as like the first skill of the fight, which used to be kind of a pain in the ass because you only got, I think, 3 uses of her LD. It might be 4. And it's a really, really hard-hitting attack. So it never felt great to have to use it before you kind of set up. Additionally, the effect of its buff, they added a couple of things to it. So number one, it's now more consistent in terms of how much extra damage you do to enemies inflicted with stun. The way that it used to work was that it would be an HP damage increase based on how many stacks they had, and then when you hit 5 stacks, it was 30% HP damage up. Now it's just 30% across the board, and she also gets more attack out of it. And then, more importantly, the follow-up attack that it does, which is triggered anytime you attack somebody with stun on them, which should be every single turn now. It now does 3 HP attacks. Now, the reason why this is relevant is part of what it does is it also adds, I believe it's 3 stacks of stun to enemies now. Now, you have to already have a stack on them, so, enemy cleanses or whatever, it's not going to be especially useful. But when you trigger it, shout out to Dissidia Compendium, because I've got them open in another window right here off to the right. Yeah. So it adds, when you do the follow-up attack, it increases their stacks by 3, which means you basically go from 5 to 1, and then your follow-up triggers and you go to 4 stacks. So basically she's able to hit the plus versions of her skills every other turn, and that's assuming that, like, you've used the AoE one, or, you've done whatever to reduce those stacks back down. If you're primarily using her skill 2, which is single target, it's not going to be that much of an issue, because once you get, let's say, target B to 5, you're never really going to be reducing them as you go in on A. Then you get A to 5 and you swap or whatever. Or if one of them isn't max and the other one isn't, essentially you can use skill 2 or skill 1 and pop the AoE, get the extra damage, etc. So she got some really nice upgrades here, because having to wait, which it was already every other turn, really. It was kind of annoying dropping down to 1 because you'd have to reapply and she only triggers that follow-up against enemies that do have the stacks on them. But with the follow-ups, it was kind of a non-issue. But it would mean that you would have to do more AoE in order to maintain your plus versions kind of every turn, every other turn sort of thing. So this just kind of streamlines it a little bit. Keep in mind, her skills get no other reworks. It just maintains that stat consistency, which is okay. Both of her skills, skill 1 and skill 2, both have 3 HP attacks natively. So with the follow-up, what you're really looking at is 6, which is extremely, extremely, extremely competitive damage. The LD itself is 6 as well, so that's 9. And then her EX does, with her C90, it does get reworked as well. So she's got the standard, passives, the, brave damage, brave gain, etc. But now, it's still the AoE brave hits into the single target HP attack, but it does it 5 times. The delay that it does is now AoE, so it delays everybody. Still has the launch, still has the battery. She recovers brave during after each of these HP attacks. And then the EX buff now has brave and HP damage up on it as well. So she should be pretty consistently capping on everything, because she's getting like 50% outgoing HP damage up, right? So now her EX is now 8 HP attacks. It's still slow as molasses. That's okay. 8 HP attacks, AoE delay, launch. The launch battery is your party, so it's actually 10 hits. So Sync's damage is extremely solid. Don't underestimate her, y'all. She's maybe not necessarily be the best, and I'm dying a little inside as I say this, the most meta character in the game. But she is very, very strong. And if you're looking for someone just slightly off the beaten path, or just to play around with as far as a damage dealer goes, Sync's got you covered. Ursula here also gets a... Stop moving. Ursula also gets a rework. So her skill 1, it's still kind of, a mess. It's now 2 HP attacks. But it does have more splash on it, so it's 50% splash on the second attack. So damage on that, very, very low. You're really only using it to maintain her unique framed debuff. Her skill 2 is now 3 HP attacks. It still sets your party's brave to 100% of their max brave, so it's full party battery. It can't be taxed in any way. As far as I know, and don't quote me on this, I don't believe it can be stopped by things that shut off brave gain. It is still a green number, but you're not gaining brave, you're just setting the value to that amount. So I know it gets around, brave gain reductions and stuff like that. So it should work, but don't quote me on that. And then her LD, it still maintains its defense ignore properties, but it's now 5 HP attacks, still instant turn, still hits really, really hard, and it's got brave refund in between each of the hits, so you're able to cap pretty consistently with it. It's very, very nice, and it looks cool as hell. Her C90, which she was actually the last character to be released before we started getting C90s. Like, literally the very last event was Ursula's debut. So she now gets brave and HP, or brave damage and brave gains up, which is really nice, because that's kind of what her kit revolves around, is being at or above a certain percentage of your max brave. Her EX is now a 4-piece, so it hits with 4 HP attacks. I believe it's full AoE, or it's like 100% splash, something like that. And it does battery your party, very, very nice. And lastly, and this is like the new, it recovers the use of your skill 2, which is your damage button. Effectively, this means, because her EX isn't slow, but it's not super fast either. I think it's a 2-skill recast. But functionally, what it means is you're going to be able to spam that a little bit more freely. Because originally what you would do is you would really only use it if you desperately needed to battery your party, or if you were trying to battery to set up into her LD HP attack, which is Shoha? Ten Shoha, excuse me. Which is kind of like Ignis's EX, where it deals damage based on your party's current amount of Brave that they held. So you would use that, go straight into that, because it is an instant turn skill. Now you can kind of spam that a little more freely. As for her FR here, which I'm actually going to pull just a little bit more, because we got super lucky with that. I have a lot of tickets coming in, so that's fine. We'll see if we can get a dupe. So the way that it works is it's an instant turn rate skill, which, whatever. But its function is when your character, so the on-turn unit, when their Brave is at least 20% of their maximum Brave going into their turn, the gauge will be incremented by 15%, and when it's 100% or more, then it's 30%, and those do stack. So going into your character's turn, like let's say I've got Gabranth, Ursula, and Freya here. Going into Gabranth's turn, if he's at 100% of his max Brave, which, if you think about it, is actually a really low number, it's going to be plus 45 at the end of the turn. And it's going to be plus 45 at the end of pretty much all of Ursula's turns, and it would be plus 45 on Freya's turn when she, comes back down, because I'm pretty sure her return attack doesn't use, Brave or whatever. But it's not if a character is at their, their HP cap. It's at HP damage cap. It is when they are at their max Brave. And so, for example, actually, we'll go into a fight really quickly. Sure. I was farming Odin just a minute ago. We'll just start this. That's fine. Kind of give you an idea. So, this is their max Brave value. I will do... This doesn't have splash on it, I don't think. Now, our max Brave on these characters, you saw it was 50 whatever. We're already full. That's a good one. So, you see how, due to his own self-battery stuff, Rude is just... Stop doing that, please. Rude is just below his max Brave value of 55,277. So, it's not their cap. This is way above. That's your overflow. So basically, Ursula's FR, especially since part of her LD effect does set your max Brave floor to 20% of your max Brave, it's super easy to maintain this conditional. You have like a Brave regen or something on your party, shouldn't be an issue at all. And if you're playing kind of to her strengths, you may not necessarily want to go, chakra into whatever, but you can do that. It's very, very easy, especially with, all the characters that we have that have end of turn refunds and batteries and yada yada blah blah, right? Very, very nice FR to have. It is kind of the baseline of what I consider to be a generalist FR, where this character being in the party by themselves is more or less enough to satisfy the conditions every turn. So you can pair them with lots of different characters because it kind of doesn't matter, because they should be able to maintain that conditional. Very, very nice. She carried me through the, I guess technically be the third month of Shinryu on JP. That being said, Sync and Ursula while they are good characters, they do have some weaknesses as well, which we will get into here as well. So, Sync is still quite slow. She is about as fast as Raijin used to be. And that's after she's got that, I think, 30% speed up or something like that on her last tuning pass. So still very slow. She does still have the high action delay on her plus versions of her skills, which, while it does delay the enemy when you use it, it also delays sync. So, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It means that she can, emphasis can here, she can be a decent character to hold calls, similar to Freya or Kayn, because they also have that same high action delay, or low turn rate, if you prefer, thing built into their kits when they jump into the air. Similar, but she does a bunch of damage as well. A lot of her damage is... It's all melee, but the problem is she can have issues capping if she's not supported properly, because the number of actual brave hits on her skills is not especially high. So if you don't have someone in your party with some kind of increase to brave gains, or if this stage is taxing them a lot, it can be kind of difficult to hit those caps with her sometimes. As for Ursula, Ursula has two different instant turn rate moves, which are her LD and her skill 2, and those are, for all intents and purposes, her best damage buttons. Her EX is obviously better than her skill 2, but you can't sit there and spam it. This plays more into using force time with Ursula, because she can eat up a lot of time that could perhaps otherwise go to another character. Maybe you want to set up for a burst or something, and if you're not paying attention to your timings and stuff like that, you can actually kind of mess up your burst phase. So that's more of a skill issue, literally. Great, it's still a very good character. It's just something that you have to be aware of. It should not put you off of Ursula. Just be aware. You're going to want to be careful with your timings. Because you hit the FR button with her, that's instant turn rate as well. So it's immediately going to be her turn. And then kind of to pair along with that, Ursula, on her skill 1 debuff that she inflicts on enemies, which I think her EX does as well, after an enemy takes a turn, similar to Realm or Eldnarsh, she will warp right behind them. So she can eat up a lot of turns. She is not off-turn damage friendly, because every time you let the enemy take a turn, she's going to warp right in. You can't increase the bonus on enemy turns. Things to be aware of. As far as things that they can do, Ursula has tons of, party battery and things like that. She has instant turn rate. Her skills are melee, I believe. So there are other FRs that you can actually pair her with. But honestly, you could just use hers and it would be fine. She's a fun character. Ooh, double LD. That would be really good if I didn't already have Freya's LD. And Ursula's. As for Sync, you're going to want her to be used with an FR where you've already kind of increased the gauge a bit, or something that has very, very high increases, so that you can essentially make the most out of the probably 2, maximum 3 turns during force time that Sync is likely to get. Because she'll be doing 6 or 9 or 10 HP attacks during force time. So she's a good damage button, but you definitely want to set up a condition where when it passes to her, she'll be able to do a ton of damage, because the bonus is already high. A really good option for this, and it's kind of the first one that my mind goes to when I think of super like cracked FRs is Hope, which obviously Hope's not out yet, but when he comes out, definitely someone that I would recommend everybody pick up, because his FR condition is very, very easy to maintain. You can spend the first like 3 or 4 turns of your force time just, you know, using skill 1, skill 2 with Hope. Increase the gauge by 120% every turn, battering your party, making sure that they've got tons of buffs, you know, brave damage reductions out the wazoo. Something like that's going to be really good for someone like Sync, who she wants to have lots of brave all the time so she can do tons of damage. And when you pass it to her with 6 turns left and you're sitting at 600% bonus, I mean, you know, so you definitely want to use her as your nuke button with somebody whose gauge can be, or whose FR condition can be pretty easily met. Hope is a really good option for that. She doesn't have an especial single target or AoE focus, but a lot of her stuff kind of goes back and forth. Her best damage buttons are all AoE, so that is something to be mindful of. Both of these characters are non-elemental, so you can enchant them, which can also be useful. Let's see. In theory, I think you could use Sync with Vaughn, because Vaughn's triggers are using a free skill, as well as being above 20% of your max brave at the end of the turn, and Vaughn's burst will do the latter, and his FR, when you use it, gives your party, I think it's 2 free skill uses apiece. So that is an option. Maybe not necessarily the best, but it's there, right? Sync can work with a lot of the very general FRs, whether it's Ursula, or later down the line, someone like Onion Knight, or Iroha. Iroha is kind of similar to Ursula's. Hers is, I think it's ending your turn with at least 20% of your max brave and being at 100% HP, and it's like plus 50%, I believe. A little bit higher. Still very, very easy to maintain with Ursula. You're not going to want to run Sync with someone like Titus, but you could do that with Ursula because she has instant turn rate skills and she has debuffs to maintain them. Ooh. Yeah. Both good characters. Highly recommend. If you don't have Freya, you should definitely pick her up. And on that note, I'm going to stop talking. Holy crap. I did not realize this video has gone on this long. Oh my god. Good luck on your pulls, if you're pulling, and if you're not, drop a comment. Let me know why. Like the video, subscribe, yada yada. I should have said that at the beginning. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Take care.